All right. So I started talking about this a while ago, and I wrote this down a while ago. There's so much stuff I wrote down, but I haven't talked about yet. And this is one of the topics, right? So the title of this is Malcolm X said it best, but do you understand why? Right. So in this video, I'm going to talk about um, the gender gap in society, mainly as it pertains to Black people, right? So the gender gap is intense, period. But we all know that when everybody has an issue, when it comes to Black people, it's that much times worse, right? It gets that much times worse when it comes to Black people, right? So that's the first part, right? The second part, I took notes. It's about to be all over the place, right? The second part is the patriarchy has partial benefits for Black men, right? But until race until race or politics are brought into the equation, patriarchy has um partial benefits to the to Black men, right? So, and then when it comes to Black men being masculinized, the hyper masculinization of Black men, right? That's a 50-50 thing because sexually it usually works out for Black men in their favor, right? When they display hyper masculinity in a sexual way, that usually works for Black men, but it doesn't work when that hyper masculinity is criminalized. That's when it becomes a drawback. When it's criminalized, or they're seen as too much competition um, in dating partners or in the workplace. That's when it becomes an issue, right? So it's like, yeah, you can get all the perks from the hyper masculinity, but it also at some point in time is going to be a drawback, right? So I put Black men, we understand your racism struggle. We do. Let's do, right? And I already know all Black, this does not apply to all Black men because all Black men do not operate like this. It's just the one with the loud voices that openly attack and demonize Black women. Like, we see your struggles, we see the things that you go through. So why do you insist on not seeing that the combination of racism and sexism drive Black women? It's not good for the mental state of Black women, right? The combination of racism and sexism, right? And then add that on to desirability politics, which is whatever at this point, right? So my thing is, when I look at Black people, I think they're attractive, period. Man, woman, I just think Black people are attractive, right? But I already know how society gets towards Black people. So I'm not saying this because I believe it, because I don't. I think Black people are the best thing ever. So my talking points are going to be about anti-Blackness and sexism in society and the rights of women, right? It's going to be about workplace problems, especially in corporate male-dominated fields. It's going to be about sexism, colorism, and racism in dating. And then I'm going to talk about the two toxic sides of colorism paired with sexism and racism, right? So let's go to anti-Blackness and sexism in society and the rights of women, right? So we all know that this society that we live in is not set up for Black people, right? So I was gonna be drinking. Ooh, that's bitter. So I was gonna be drinking some wine, right? So and we already know that when it comes to women, they're already seen as second class citizens. So a Black woman, that's a couple different strikes, boo. A Black woman, right? Women are already seen as somebody's property in society, even though we're taking steps to change that nowadays, right? And then that's the sexism part. But then when you pair the sexism with anti-Blackness, that can have some really intense ramifications for women, right? So we all know that some people believe that the racist colonists and lies that demonize and invalidate the ones that don't live up to the standards of society, right? So I'm gonna get into the demonizing of dark skin while having a dangerous fetish, right? So nowadays, I feel like nowadays the black unity, the black love is coming together real good, right? I love it. I love this. I love what I see in a lot of different like black spaces, the love that's there, right? But then there's also that underlying divisiveness, right? So it's like I have a two-sided list, right? The first side of the list is about dark skin, and the second side of the list is about light skin. And I want to get into this because I feel like people use dark skin, light skin to turn us as a community against each other. But especially when it comes to women and desirability politics and dating and marriage, that shit gets real ugly, right? So, and I feel like there's stuff on both sides to where it's like, this is dumb. We're all turning against each other and not realizing that this works against all of us, light skin or dark skin, right? So I'm gonna go to the dark skin side, right? So on the dark skin side, we have unnecessary hatred for dark skin, right? In society, you know how people always try to demonize darker skinned people, period. And then when you're a darker skinned woman and you have that anti blackness paired with that sexism, because already society sees women as second class citizens, and then you have the anti blackness that can be dangerous for somebody who's just a regular, happy go lucky, dark skinned woman. And because somebody might have some anti blackness or sexism in their heart, that could be dangerous for somebody, right? So unnecessary hatred that already gives a darker skinned black woman a need to put a wall up and prove that they can protect themselves and prove that they're worthy, right? That unnecessary hatred, right? Number two is the overless sexualization, right? So then there's the people that have this unhealthy fetish for darker skinned people because, in this society, when you're trained to hate something, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are trained to hate it but secretly want it, so they don't know if they want it or hate it, and it comes out as a dangerous fetish, right? That's something that a darker skinned woman might deal with. That's something that black women deal with, period. But particularly when you're a darker skinned black woman, that dangerous over sexualization, that fetishization, it that can backfire and become horrible. And then like some people that have that fetishization have a tendency to try to discard and gaslight a woman because they're so invested in desirability politics, knowing you was feeling that woman, but because you're so invested in desirability politics, you want to try to put on a front, and now you're sitting here messing with somebody's mind, messing with their reality, right? So that's not okay. And then the third thing I have on the list, there's four things for each side, right? So, like I said, number one, unnecessary hatred. Number two, over sexualize and discard. Number three, stereotypes as being rude or overly aggressive. Where it's like a dark skinned woman could just be having a bad day. She could be the nicest person in the world, but one bad day, and people want to stereotype her as the angry black woman. It's not okay. That's not okay. So, but this is something that also attributes to all black women. The stereotype of being overly aggressive and rude. Whereas, like, yeah, there are people that are overly aggressive and rude, but that does not apply to every black woman that you meet. Every black woman is not overly aggressive and rude. There are some very lovely black women out there that will put their heart on their sleeve and give the clothes off their back to whoever needs it. And I feel like um black women are, I was talking about this earlier in the video that didn't get posted, but I was talking about how I'm this type of person, but I feel like this applies to black women, period, right? Where it's like all nobody sees all the times where you were the bigger person and let shit slide and let things go. But everybody sees that one time when you decide to freak out and stand up for yourself, and now you're being stereotyped as overly aggressive because you decide to stand up for yourself one time. That's something that happens to black women a lot. And I don't think it's fair, right? Um, I'm saying this can happen to black women, period, but it's more likely to happen to darker skinned black women. That's why it's on the darker. All the stuff I said can happen to black women, period, but it's more likely to happen to darker skinned black women. And I'm going to do a light skinned side, and it also can happen to black women, period, but more likely to happen to lighter skinned black women, right? And the last thing on the list is the dehumanization of darker skinned women. This, like I said, this happens to all black women, but it's more likely to happen to darker skinned black women. Try to see them as less as human, so you can, um, say okay that it's fine for them to be taken advantage of or treated badly. That's not okay. So because of the stereotype of being rude or aggressive, that gives people a leeway to feel like they can dehumanize them and make them be seen as less of a person, and that you shouldn't have any repercussions happening when bad things happen to them. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of our black men have fallen into these mind traps about black women, and particularly darker skinned black women, right? So that's the dark skin side, right? Now let's go to the light skin side, right? So number one is they can be stereotyped as soft or conceited or have no backbone. Like I said, this happens to black women, period, but more likely happen to lighter skinned black women. Being perceived as soft or conceited. It's not true. I mean, not to say that there aren't people that are soft and conceited, and just because somebody is nice does not mean that they're soft and that they won't stand up for themselves. And I feel like I feel like a lot of light skinned black women will start being overly aggressive when they have somebody that's trying not to take their words seriously, or trying to minimize them because they're lighter skinned. And I feel like that's where a lot of aggressive lighter skinned black women come from, is people diminishing them because they're being seen as softer or more demure because of their light skin, right? And that creates aggression, right? Um, Number two is invalidation of blackness. This happens to lighter skinned black women a lot. It's more likely to happen, but it can also happen to darker skinned black women, especially if they're the quote unquote white girl, or they speak with proper grammar and annotation, or they happen to be a blurred or a gothic black girl. Like outside of light skin, this is something that can happen to black people, period. But like I said, more likely to happen to lighter skinned black women, which is invalidation of blackness, or um invalidation of your blackness, or try to make you seem as other. You like yeah, you're not you I mean you black, but you're not black because look at you. And it's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Another thing that'll cause a light skinned black woman to have attitude. Don't invalidate people's blackness. No matter what they look like, no matter what they sound like, no matter what they act like. That is damaging to a black person. Because when you sit here and you call a person that is not white, they know they're not white. White people let them know that they're not white all the time. You don't have to sit here and try to make them seem like they're trying to be something that they're not. I mean, some people don't know. Some people are more likely to be ignoring of reality. But I'm just saying, don't do that. All right, and then number three is fetishization of light skin, right? So it's like I talked about over sexualization and fetishization of darker skin, but it can also happen to lighter skin, where it's like, do you really like me, or do you just like the fact that I'm a light skinned person? Like, what is it? Do you like who I am as a person, or do you like the way that I look and the way that you feel with me around you? Is it real? And I feel like that happens to black women no matter what the shade is. That fetishization, where it's like, do you like me, or do you like the skin that I'm in? Have you always wanted to experience the skin I'm in, or something? Like, that's something that can make somebody have an attitude real quick. And then the last thing is invalidation for the sentiment for Black issues. That can happen to lighter skinned Black people too. And I feel like that's something that will make them become like more aggressive in activism, where it's like, you're not going to try to take my Blackness away just because I look like this. You're not going to try to question my Blackness because I look like this. I'm still a Black person at the end of the day, right? So those were two sides of a different coin, right? Another thing I want to talk about is when people use the angry Black woman trope to justify mistreatment, right? I just named off things that'll make dark skinned and light skinned women upset and start getting irritated, right? And then it's like these things add up as microaggressions throughout your day. All of that list I just talked about adds up as microaggressions throughout your whole day. And now you've reacted and people are labeling you the angry Black woman. So if somebody hits you, or if somebody mistreats you, or if somebody tries to so-called put you in your place, people justify that mistreatment because you were being the angry Black woman, right? So that's something that can have a drawback for Black women, right? And then I'm going to talk about desirability politics, right? And the demonization of Afrocentric beauty standards. So we all know that this society likes to have like Europeanized beauty centric standards, and I feel like within like the past 5 to 7 years, people have been embracing that. No, not even just like the past 5 to 10 years. It's been a slow build up. I like my natural hair. I like my Blackness. I like my skin type of thing going on with Black people, right? And it's been a beautiful movement to witness, right? People reclaiming their Afrocentric beauty standards, and I love to see it, right? But there are still some spaces that uphold that Eurocentric beauty standard that will not grant access to people who love their Blackness and love the skin that they're in. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, if you're secure in yourself, it doesn't really matter that much. But unfortunately, like I always talk about these I'm gonna start talking more about these dating shows. I have them for like when I started doing the podcast and stuff. Um, I didn't get to upload any of those either. There's a lot of stuff I have to start from scratch, but these Black women on dating shows is the perfect example. Like the perfect match, how the perfect match did Aunt Sophie. I'm still upset for Aunt Sophie and the other Black girl that was on the show. I forgot. Aunt Sophie is from one of those real estate shows, and the other dark skinned Black woman, I think she's also from the date. And I forgot the other dark skinned Black woman that was on there. Let me look at my phone. I'm gonna look it up real quick. But yeah, this made me think about these dating shows and these Black women. I'm gonna talk about Aunt Sophie for a couple seconds, right? So Aunt Sophie on The Perfect Match, beautiful, successful Black woman, right? There is a ton of Black men on the show, right? But all of them were so amazed by Eurocentric beauty standards and crying over Francesca, like, whew, crying over Francesca, and sitting here when Aunt Sophie comes in, like being all like, "Oh yes, good Samaritan, good sir," right? And Aunt Sophie comes in all of a sudden, like, "My beautiful, strong Black queen." Aunt Sophie, da, 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 da. As soon as he gets her in Dom, as soon as he gets her in the house, hands her off to the other Black man who was also not interested in Black women. And it's like, my thing is, I have no problem seeing Black women swirl dating outside their race, because I've seen too many instances where Black women are like, "Oh, I just want Black men. There's not. I don't want anybody else." Da, 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 da. But they're singling out good dating options, and unfortunately, there be men that be too shallow, and it's like, just test the waters. You never know where you could find somebody that like it, right? Oh, I almost forgot what I was. Oh yeah, The Perfect Match. All right, The Perfect Match. Wait, let's put The Perfect Match cast, right? Because let's see. All right, Francesca. I was just talking about Francesca, crying over Francesca. Um, let's see, who was the other black woman? Oh yeah, and then the whole thing that happened with Savannah. She's not even a black woman, but she was the only other person of color besides the two black women. Um, no, Izzy was on there too. Oh, Colony. Colony, the way they did Colony and freaking Aunt Sophie, I was not happy. I was not happy because they're both beautiful, gorgeous, successful black women who are not living up to the so-called quote unquote terrible black woman stereotype, and y'all still did them wrong, right? So my thing is, if there are black men out there that swirl, go on swirl away. Black men out there that swirl, keep swirling away too. Like my thing is, find whoever likes you, right? And I know some people get um worried about fetishization. I used to be one of those people, but then I started dating outside my race, and um I'm not object to it anymore. I found some really great. I've had some really great dates outside my race. I've also had great dates within my race, but I've also had great dates outside my race. My thing is, I will test the waters, right? So yeah, dating shows and how they did Aunt Sophie and Colony. A perfect example of desirability politics and the demonization of Afrocentric beauty standards, right? So then I want to go over the historical link of racism paired with sexism, right? So, like I said before, women were always kind of seen as these second class citizens, and before black people became a commodity for the world, um before black people became a commodity for the world, it was like it wasn't really a race thing. It was more about the property and land that you have, right? And until black people became a commodity for the world, right? So as soon as that started happening, it's like women were already demonized, but then black women just started being treated even more worse, you know? And I feel like throughout the ages, there's still these little underlying things that lay there that are not the greatest, but I feel like a lot of the history of racism and sexism have led to a lot of underlying nuances, not only in the dating world but in the corporate political sphere, right? Dating, corporate political sphere, just out on a night on the town with your friends for the night. All this links up and has stacks against black women, right? So I'm only making this for people who are interested in knowing about the stuff that black women go through, right? And I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go on to talk about the dangers of racism paired with sexism, and I'm only doing this because, unfortunately, a lot of women have given up trying to make. A lot of black women have given up trying to make people understand. Don't care if people understand. I'm just doing this to try and see if I can have some kind of discourse. If somebody's gonna respond to this, because I this is stuff that's been added up for a minute, right? But I'm gonna go through the dangers of racism paired with sexism, right? So I have a list from 1 to 6. These are the dangers. One, objectification and its scary outcomes. And this could be for all women. This can apply to all women, but particularly black women, right? So it's like women in general are already objectified, but because of anti-blackness on top of sexism, it's like you got your two different types of hate. There are some people, there are two favorite types of hate in one person. And unfortunately, that type of violence can make a person that has an aggressive exterior. I mean, that's the shield that people put on to protect themselves from people who have those types of hate in their heart, that racist hate, that sexist hate. And you can't just and when black women cry for help, people are more likely to just turn the other way. Because like I said, dehumanization of black women, the dehumanization of blackness is real, period. But because black people are dehumanized, black women are less likely to be believed about pain, about being in danger, and about having vulnerability. They're less likely to be believed about all the three of those things: being vulnerable, having pain, or being in danger. So that's some of the outcomes that objectification can have for a black woman. When people don't even think that you're telling the truth, and people are more likely to not believe you, right? So that's something that can happen. Like I said, I don't even worry about this stuff anymore. There was a point in time where I was just hardcore into this stuff, preaching about it every day, but I'm not there anymore. And maybe it's a good thing I didn't post it when I was there, because yeah, I would have been like, oh my gosh, calm down, Kara X. Like, all right. So, and number two, femicide is real. And this goes for women in particular, for all women, but I'm talking about it for black women right now. But femicide is real, right? And this is the unaliving of females. That's what femicide is, right? So femicide is the unaliving of females, right? And when somebody has those two types of their favorite types of hates, sexism and racism, that type of objectification, femicide is a possibility. You could just be walking down the street having a regular day, but because somebody is projecting onto you and they see and you somehow ruin their reality of who they think black people are, people will hurt you for not being who they think you should be, right? And another reason why black women have such a tough exterior, right? Because we know this. In the back of our minds, we know this. In the back of our minds, we know that if we get caught slipping, there's a possibility that it's not going to end well, right? So, number three kind of goes into femicide is real, which is I'm not even gonna go over number three. I'm gonna make it five things because I put well, let's say no, I'm gonna keep number three. Brutalization in society, right? And people can get hurt because of this type of objectification. These two types of objectifications that happen to black women, right? Which is anti-blackness and sexism. So brutalization can happen. A person can get severely hurt just from that. So this is stuff that happens to all women, but because a black woman has anti-blackness and sexism against her, it's more likely to happen. And I feel like women of color also have this kind of intersectionality that goes into it. And this is what feminism covers, and feminism doesn't really cover it because it's not really made for. I feel like feminism is made for all women to a degree. Okay, to a degree. Um, but I'm not even going to go into that right now. Um, number four, there are a lot of black women that can go missing or get abducted because of these stereotypes, because of these objectifications, because of how society is geared toward women and toward black people, right? More likely to go missing, more likely for people to not report it, more likely for people to just be like, blah, 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 it's whatever. Another thing that makes black women upset in this society. Okay? Just letting you know. All right, number five, the rate of abuse amongst black women, right? And I'm just saying, like, The rate of abuse amongst Black women, not even just in domestic partnerships. Um, it can happen in regular street violence. Can happen in your workplace. It can happen while you're driving down the highway, right? And I'm not just talking about physically. People getting physically aggressive with you. People getting verbally aggressive with you. People trying to test your intelligence because they think that they have stereotypes about blackness and intelligence. So they're going to try to test your intelligence and your say so. These kind of things, the type of violence that happens to Black women. That's what I mean when I say the rate of abuse. I'm talking about the different violences, whether it be physical violence, verbal violence, emotional violence, mental violence. And let's not even mention being in a hospital as a Black woman, right? Being in a hospital as a Black woman, they're not they're less likely to take your pain seriously. There are women who have unfortunately went to heaven because they weren't believed about their pain. They weren't believed about their symptoms. They weren't treated properly or with the proper care, just negligent toward them. And then especially if a Black woman decides to go to a hospital alone and not advocate for herself, there are dangerous things that can happen to that Black woman. And like I'm saying, the violence that happens towards Black women in the hospital, driving down the highway, at your job, in your relationship, in the freaking store, just because society perceives Black women a certain way. And all these annoyances, all the things I'm talking about, this can all happen in one day. And then by the time you see that Black woman, she's spazzing going off, and you're sitting there like, well, another angry Black woman. This everything I'm talking about is why. Everything I'm talking about is why. Right? Um, so and then number 6, I put being unalived in domestic partnerships, right? Nobody talks about this, the rate of abuse that happens in romantic relationships for Black women, right? Unfortunately, some Black women don't make it out alive. And unfortunately, some Black women do make it out alive, but now their whole pathology is messed up and they need healing and they need to go to therapy. But you already know how Black people in therapy is. Black people don't believe in therapy like that. I feel like it's getting better nowadays. Some Black people are like, yes, worry about your mental health, normalize Black people worrying about their mental health. And I agree, I'm on that train. Normalize Black people worrying about mental health, right? I'm on that entire train, right? So, like I said, this entire list is stuff that can make Black women seem combative or aggressive or going off, misunderstood. Everything that I just said is why, right? And it seems like unfortunately, there are some of our own people that will hop on the train to preach anti Blackness and self hate in order to get perks and privileges and all those sort of things. And I think about this with the red pill community. I know some of you guys are just trying to hurt, I'm just trying to help men that have been hurt, is what I'm trying to say. Some of y'all are just trying to help men that have been hurt. But some of y'all are really cashing in on demonizing and down talking the women of your community. And there are other women of other communities calling you out about it. And I feel like it's sad. I do. These are for the men that cash in off of Black women's pain and Black women's dysfunction. I'm addressing you because it's sad. For people to see our entire community like this, it hurts my heart because I feel like as Black people we could do better. And vice versa on the other side. Like, I know stuff in the Black community is not perfect. There's a lot of stuff we got to work on. There's a lot of intergenerational traumas that we have to heal in our own families and as a society, right? So I get really sad when I see us bashing each other on the internet, talking bad about each other on the internet. And yes, there are a lot of us that are unhealed and toxic, but that goes for the entire world. But like I said, the gender war that's happening, when it's everyone, black people are going through it 10 times worse. You see the way men and women are going at each other right now? That means black people need that much more healing. We need to focus on that because, like I said, when it's bad for everybody, it's always worse for black people, no matter what it is. Recession, pandemic, gender war, it's always worse. like, so, with that being said, I have my closing message. I'm gonna take my last sip. Cheers. That is bitter. Oof, baby. All right, black men that look down on us. We don't want you to tell us that we're right. We don't want you to tell us that you understand. And we don't want you to tell us that we're right, period. Um, I put that we just want a little understanding and validation, but you know what? If that doesn't come, that's okay. I mean, I just feel like black women are so quick to understand, y'all. And to the black men that understand, my heart goes to you. Kudos. Sending all the love, right? But to the ones that don't, it just feels like sometimes nobody sees us. And for the people that are supposed to see us the most, it seems like sometimes y'all see us the least. I'm just putting it out there. I'm pretty sure there's other black women that come and say that. I don't want to demonize black men as a whole because I don't feel like black men as a whole are bad. I just feel like the ones that are the most toxic usually have the loudest voices. That's it. But I see that there's a lot of great, good black men out here. But was basically for black people. I just went over some of the issues that black women face. I want to do a black man one too about black men's struggles. I started doing it and I couldn't even. I started writing it down and doing the research, but I started crying because like I said, I see y'all. I see what y'all go through, but sometimes it feels like when black women talk about what they go through, it's like blah blah blah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brush it off. Shh, shh, shh. That's what it feels like sometimes. It's like so invalidating, where it's like, like I said, I acknowledge some of us are toxic, but some of us really genuinely need healing from a society that doesn't see us and wants us to not be confident. And that's another thing. Confident black women continue to be confident no matter who tries to knock down your confidence. Like I feel like in this society, when people see a confident black woman, it's like a group of people form just to knock her in, into her place, right? It's like a group of people form like you're too confident. Shut up and sit down. Unless you're like, even sometimes, even in the public eye, sometimes like yeah, you'll have your moment of being praised, but when it's your turn for them to drag you and talk the worst about you, they will. No matter how famous you are. Like I feel like famous people get talked about bad, period. But like I just feel like, especially if you're not famous, even sometimes when you're famous, like I said, I've seen the stuff that people say about like A-list black celebrities all the time. It's like, really? Come on. Can we just one moment just let that person shine, let that person glow, let them yes, queen. Can we get some of that? Yes, queen. A little bit. A little bit. All right, but no, with that being said, my closing statements, look, if you look down on us, fine. If you don't want to understand, fine. If you don't want to validate it, that's also fine. I'm just putting this information out there for people who might want to vent about some of their experiences and for people who have a misunderstanding about black women and why black women could be hostile or aggressive. Um, my thing is a lot of black women hold their anger in because they don't want to be labeled because there are repercussions to being the angry black woman. It can literally have a negative impact on your life. So it's like I want black women to know that it's okay to be angry. Just find your safe space to express your anger and release all that pent up tension, because holding that anger inside is always going to find a way out. And 9 times out of 10, it comes out at the wrong time and have you looking crazy, right? Black women, it is okay to express your anger. Just make sure it's constructive and make sure you have a safe place around people that understand you and won't demonize you for being angry. It's okay to have a spectrum of emotions. Just learn to be around people who are okay with you being vulnerable, who are okay with you not wearing the cape, who are okay with you sweating out your edges and having a breakdown from time to time. Sometimes you just need those people in your life, right? Find those people. And if you can't find those people, make your favorite playlist of songs, blast that shit, and just start cursing obscenities or something. Something. Do something. You gotta go to boxing, go yell at the sky in private, turn up your favorite playlist and just curse everybody out that you felt like cursing out over loud music. Do what you gotta do to get that anger or to get those range of emotions out. All right? It's okay to be emotional. You don't gotta be strong all the time. You don't have to appease everybody's comfortability all the time by being a fake version of yourself. And I know that the society will try to make you pay for certain things, you know, but I feel like we're at a time where a lot of us are reclaiming ourselves back, and it's okay. It's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to express your anger. It's okay to have a range of emotions. Don't hold this stuff in, and don't let the society gaslight you and tell you that there's something wrong with you for expressing your anger or displaying a range of emotions. And like I said, the people that understand heart, thank you. The people that don't get it, it's okay. Maybe we'll have a discourse. Maybe you want to understand, maybe you don't. And either is okay. But with that being said, I'm off this. And I might make a part two. What do you guys think? Let me know. Bye. Like, share, subscribe. I said I wasn't going to do that, but this is my new job now. So, like, share, subscribe, hit me up in the comments, send me a message, do what you got to do. And with that being said, bye. Deuces. Peace.